When you don't go to Geico.com, car insurance can be confusing. Like Swedish techno confusing.
Bark, bark, meow, meow. Dance with me, purple cow. Bark, bark, meow, meow. Ooh, you lovely cow.
Geico makes it easy. With 24/7 access, all you have to do is go to Geico.com and you could save money on car insurance. It just makes sense. Unlike,
Dance with me, purple cow. I like your moves.
Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to another evening of conversations. Today we have Roslyn Ellison. She wears many hats. She worked as a counselor for elementary school as well as a counselor for at-risk teens. And in 1993, Crunchtown Reading Center was created. It's a place where life is enriched by reading and learning. The center is developed to create a broad range of educational activities. Crunchtown is a small area in the West Kingston ghetto enclave of Jamaica's capital. Like most economically depressed areas, Crunchtown has been abandoned and avoided by both private and public sectors. Consequently, the area has been isolated and threatened by surrounding political and gang violence. One of the beacons of that community is the Crunchtown Reading Center. You can learn more about it at TrenchtownReadingCenter.com. As usual, my co-host is Chris Daly, a blogger on Jamaicans.com, Me Thinking Are You, and also your Internet Energizer. Chris, take it away.
Thank you, Janice. And Roslyn, welcome to our conversation this evening.
Thank you.
Well, first, let's get to know you a little. Tell us a little about your Jamaican roots.
Jamaican roots. I was born in Vancouver, BC, went to school here, did various jobs, counseling, education, real estate, drove a taxi, was a commercial salmon troller, and started going to Jamaica in the mid-'80s, and basically just drove around all the back roads and went there maybe 2-3 times a year for maybe 3-4 weeks at a time. Never made it into Kingston until 1991. I was there for like 1 week. And then in 92, I was in Montego Bay, and I had a car. I had rented a car, and my friend was gone. So I got somebody to drive me to Kingston. For some reason, I had to go there. I have no idea what it was. And he was from Trenchtown. And so we drove to Trenchtown. And this is the days before cell phones. And so basically, public phones don't work. Nobody there had a phone. There was a phone at the veterinarian hospital across the road, which was closed. So we get there, around 10 o'clock at night. It's a dark and stormy night. And he drops me off on First Street in Con's old yard, which is Bob Marley's old yard. And he said, "I'll soon come," and he disappeared. So I ended up sitting there for 3 hours with the Don and some, Rastas and guys sitting on a bench under a tree, and we just started talking, and one thing led to another, and I went back the next day, and we looked at the community and started talking about, Shaba had a song out called, I don't know what it was called, but it was about put down the gun and pick up a book. And I said, yeah, but what's the book going to say? Where is the book going to be? How are they going to have access? Because, there's a public library not far away, but the kids aren't welcome unless they have good clothes. And the books tended to be very Eurocentric and highly out of date, just not in their mentality and their thinking at all. So we looked at the rehearsal room in the Vin Lawrence building, and we decided that would be a great place to have a library. I had initially asked Dawn, I said, why don't you give me a room, and an elderly woman will put a sink in there and some books. And they came to me and said, well, the music rehearsal room. And I said, well, that's got a lot of history. That's where everybody practices and played. And they said, no, it's time. So we sat down, figured out our mission statement, which was basically we weren't going to be a mission. We weren't going to wait to convince people of what we wanted to do because, number one, it would take a lot of time. Number two, it may not happen. And number three, it certainly wouldn't happen in the way we wanted it to happen. So we decided to carry on. We figured out what we needed. We drove in a car downtown, which at that time most of the people from Chinatown had to lay on the floor because the rivalry and the violence was very extreme in the early 90s. And I left, and 5 weeks later they called me and said they were ready. I went down with 5 banana boxes full of books, and we had a big concert, and Sadella Marley was there, and her friend, I can't remember her name, White Dread Lawyer, and Massive Dread was alive at the time, and we had a huge concert, and it was really, really a fantastic event. So that was sort of the beginning. So I already had years of driving around the countryside, which is sort of where a lot of the real positive Jamaica comes from, is from the countryside. So right. I had a pretty solid connection with Jamaica by that time.
Incredible. But you must have seen something special. What was at your core that motivated you, that you would, after that one visit, 5 weeks later, you were back and a center was started?
Well, I guess I was brought up in an atheist socialist household. My mother was a doctor, my father was a dentist, but the ethic in our family was that you are socially responsible. You have to give back to your community, right? So my entire life, I've always done sort of things like that. You know, I've worked there, I've volunteered here, I've volunteered there. And I'm a very action-oriented person. I don't like to sit in meetings and say blah, blah, blah. I just see something and I do it. So I had lots of involvement with children. I love books. And the illiteracy rate is really high. In those days, people didn't have television, they didn't have cell phones. So there were books in the home, but not very many. And at that time, things have changed now, but at that time, even though, who knows what people did to make a living, but there was a lot of social consciousness going on. It was the root of Rasta. It was the root of sort of the one love, taking care of ourselves, black empowerment. So there was a lot of social motivation to make real change, and that is what really drew me to the place, because the mission statement of the Reading Center was not to create little worker bees. Our concept was that how is real change accomplished? Real change is accomplished with, one, the skills to be able to access information. In other words, you have to be literate. You have to be able to read. You have to be able to speak. You have to be able to critical think and share your ideas. You need access to information. So you need books. You need materials to be able to look at his history and information. You have to have access to information. And that's how real change comes about. So when you look at how the situation of what people live in, it's a perfectly normal reaction to be violent, to be depressed, to opt out. Those are natural, normal reactions to a situation, but they're not healthy for a person, for a family, or for the community. So in order to make real change, you have to have a real base. And so that was the whole concept behind the Reading Center. So our motto was, knowledge is power. And what's really interesting is I started a nonprofit. It was very successful. We had lots of kids. It was a tiny little room, but we had even then we had fantastic books. We didn't want, when people give books, they often just give you a big box of books. They're torn, they're ripped, or it's all, Caucasians at the beach. We decided that we were going to appreciate all the gifts that we were given and donations, but we were going to pick and choose specifically what we wanted.
Okay.
Because it's important to have control, to have a focus and keep control of that focus. Even to this day, we'd rather have 5 good books than boxes of books. Number one, we have a lot of books. We display our books, and we have so many books, and we always need more, but we're very specific about what we want because we have a specific outlook. And I just lost my train of thought.
Well, why don't we do? How about the kids? Tell us a little about the kids. What do you see in their eyes when they come to this learning center?
Well, from the beginning, even in the small place, it was a place that belonged to them. We didn't have an office. We've never had an office. Whatever space we have is space for everybody, including the kids. So they know that they can come there. The concept, I know what I was going to say, knowledge is power. So I came and I formed a nonprofit organization in Canada called Friends of the Trenchtown Reading Center. Mm-hmm. And I made a pamphlet. This was before Internet. And it said knowledge is power. And even the people in Vancouver say you have to get rid of that because it scares people. And I said, no, but that's exactly what it's about. It's about empowering people to make better choices for themselves because the people there are so marginalized. It's like, except for downtown Kingston, the world is a place to which they do not feel entitled, to which they do not feel they belong, and they don't even know how to access it. So what happens now, all these years later, which hasn't been an easy road, but here we are. We have this beautiful physical plant. One of the reasons we have the garden and we keep it so nice and it's beautiful inside is because to give the children and the people a sense of value, that they are valued. So they come in there, and it's their place. They come in, they sit at the kids' corner. They've never really had the opportunity. They're either in the strict confines of the school where you sit with your hands on your desk or at church, or they're sort of chaotically running around the streets. But in the reading center, we give them the social tools. So they sit in the kids' corner, and they pick books, and they sit there, and they share with each other, and they read, and it's their place. When we read a story, we even if we're using it to teach something, when we read the story, we always ask neutral questioning because we want to know what they think. And when the kids first come, you say, let's say the book is Why Did the Mosquito Buzz? And so there's a little bit of the story saying, well, what do you think will happen next? Or why do you think he did that? And like all kids, they're looking to see what the correct answer is. But there's no correct answer. We just want to get them to think. And when they first come, they're silent because no one's ever asked them what they think. And then after a while, they're so excited, the hands are flying up, and, you just say, oh, that's interesting. Let's see. Any other ideas? So they learn self-confidence. They have self-esteem. They are learning to think beyond rote learning. And most of the stuff we do creative arts as well with it. So if we're doing something on compound words, or we're doing something on language arts, or we're doing a story, there's usually a part in there where they get to draw or color or cut or do something. Again, it's sort of expanding their way of thinking, and for kids who aren't literate and are struggling, the art part helps them learn. So basically it's a place that's comfortable, that's beautiful. They see themselves in all the books. Every book that's Afrocentric has a red dot on it, from the kids' corner to adult literature, through nature, through juvenile. So they exist. They see people like them in all kinds of situations. They're valued for their opinions. They're valued for their energy. They learn to get along. They learn to experience all kinds of successes that they've never had before.
Well, this place is clearly an oasis, but I know you must have challenges. What are some of the challenges you face in sustaining such a great place?
Well, sometimes when the programs and things become so successful, that's when the challenges really begin. Personally, my biggest challenge is to find somebody who is willing to share the management on the day-to-day basis, who understands the program. The minute I finished the final building, there were lots of people who came and said, okay, I'm ready to come in, I'm moving in, I'm taking over, and I'm going, excuse me? And there's a lot of people who want it, but they're not necessarily people who want the program. What they want is this beautiful, fantastic physical space. But a lot of them don't understand what the philosophy is. We have to be very careful that it doesn't become just a homework center, an exam prep place, and a place for an organization to have meetings about themselves and seminars about themselves, which is common in Jamaica. We are really client-centered. We don't have an office, even in that huge, it's not huge, but we have, a fair-sized library, a big classroom. There's no office. We are open, basically 12:30, 1 o'clock to 7:30, 8 o'clock, Tuesdays, Fridays, Saturday we're open from 1 to 5, and that means we're open. That means we're open for the children and for the community at large. So that is something very different than most places in Jamaica. We are really, really client-centered, but that requires a lot of training. So I do the training. I do a lot of the lesson plans. You know, we're always looking to do new things. We have a guest artist who comes on Saturdays and does art, and we have a fantastic drama and spoken word group. Now we need a new coach. So it's difficult. It's difficult to run it from here when I'm not in Jamaica, but it just seems that for now has to be the way it is. But the people running it are fantastic, and they're from the area. So, you know, we're employing people that live there, and they know everybody. And sometimes it's a blessing, sometimes it's a curse. But the challenges, aside from sort of management issues, the challenges are getting volunteer participation. Because in Jamaica, it's the big elephant in the room is that Jamaica is a class society, and you know, except for a few pasa-pasa dances, they don't meet. So many people say to me, I don't go to Trenchtown. They know nothing about Trenchtown. It's 5 minutes from where they are, they don't go. It's convenient because if they went and they would see it's a peaceful community full of wonderful people. The children are wonderful. There's a lot of them are hungry. There's sometimes sewer in the streets because often the sewage doesn't work. For months we didn't have running water. They had to go, you know, with a cart for a mile to get water. I mean, it's a real struggle to live there. But the people are the same as any community, right? And so when people come, they're very touched when they're in a space and they see the children. And sometimes they say, wow, they're such good readers, they're such good poets. Like, I don't know what they think they're expecting to find. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, but then what happens is people come, and this isn't me saying this, but people from Uptown, from the Ministry of Education, from Social Lights, everybody says it has the best secular collection of books of any library in Jamaica. The physical space is absolutely wonderful. The programs are fantastic. The kids are wonderful. It's a fantastic place. There's a few people who have been extremely helpful, but none of the universities, none of the teachers' colleges, none of the government has stepped forward and said, okay, I mean, here's a place, beautiful space, fantastic material, programs in place. Illiteracy is acknowledged as the root of all the violence and marginalization, poverty, all the economic and violent issues that plague Jamaica. So here is a perfect literacy. We have a dedicated guided reading literacy section. We have a literacy program. So why isn't the university coming in and training their people there? Oh, it's too far to go. You get in a bus and you come down, right? What's wrong with the Ministry of Education? Nobody can figure out why they don't come. Partly it's Garrison, because if they support, we're not a lower First Street. We're not important to anybody. We don't get votes for anybody. And also, you know, it's more, I guess, PNP than JLP, but we're not really important to PLB. And so, you know, they're going to be in Trenchtown. It's, you know what I'm saying? Like, Trenchtown has this, you know, dual reality of being, you know, the beginning of Rasta and peace and love and brotherhood and social transformation. And also, from years ago, you know, is the quintessential negatives of all the ghetto issues, when in fact it's a lot less violent than lots of places in Montego Bay, Crossroads, I mean, all kinds of places. But in people's minds, it's a barrier. So we have a lot of trouble getting volunteers to come.
Well,
people say they're going to come, but they go away and they forget. So we need volunteers to come and participate.
All right. So what would be your number one wish? I hope this interview we're trying to do this interview towards that end. So what would be your number one wish for the center?
The number one most important thing is operating expenses. Okay. And what happens is the World Bank goes all over the world, and they team up with local governments, and they build buildings. But nobody funds people. So you go all over the world, and you see these buildings empty because nobody funds people. I mean, when I first came back in 2005 and reconfigured it and finished the community classroom and expanded it and had to redo the whole book collection, a few people gave us grants. We could spend $1,000 American on plants. We couldn't buy any books. It was the Americans who first said, okay, you can buy books. And since then, other people have allowed for books. But the concept is, if you give operating expenses and then you stop giving operating expenses, then they'll be blamed that there's no job. Except that doesn't make sense because the people working there don't know where their money comes from, right?
Right.
But what corporations and businesses, what people like that want is they want a photo op. They want to build something that they see as long-term, that they can take a picture of and touch and put a plaque on and say, okay, we did this. And that's great, but the Reading Center now has the physical thing. Yes, we need the outside painted and those kinds of things, but we don't need any more physical things. What we need is money to operate. Volunteerism is important, but when you have a place like the Reading Center where we actually do a lot of education, a lot of learning, we need a consistent, dedicated, trained staff. So it's about $15,000 is the projected budget for 2011. And what we need to do, pardon?
U.S. Canadian dollars.
Canadian U.S. dollars,
okay.
Which, considering what we offer in the scheme of what gets spent in Jamaica, is nothing. Every penny goes to that place. I don't have one meal, one taxi, nothing. Everything goes to the center. So what we're urging people to do is look at the invisible as long term. So, if you give $100, if you give $500, if you give $50, and that goes to operating expenses, what that does, if people can get a chance to look at the YouTube videos and see the place in action, the long-term result is looking at those children and what they get out of it.
Right.
The next thing we need is materials. Like we always need supplies like pencil, crayons, paper, paint, large things of glue. That alone costs $1,000 a year just for that.
Just for the materials.
Yeah.
How best can people donate monies to the center?
Well, the best way, and what I really, really encourage people to do is you're going to post on your blog the YouTube videos, but also if they go, the website is good. I haven't got the YouTube videos on there yet, but if they go to Friends of the Trenchtown Reading Center on Facebook, make sure it's Friends of the Trenchtown Reading Center because there's someone posing as us. So it's Friends of the Trenchtown Reading Center group on Facebook, and you can see all the YouTube links. Because if you do, you'll really see. Seeing is believing. I can talk till I'm blue in the face, but there's one video that's 2 minutes, that's our summer school. There's one that's 3 minutes, Black History Month. If you just take 2 minutes and look at that, then you'll see where your money goes, right?
So they can donate on the web too. Could you share the website that they?
The website is trenchtownreadingcenter.com, and center is spelled CENTRE, but I'm sure no matter how you spell it, it will come up. So trenchtownreadingcenter.com. There's PayPal on that, and the PayPal goes directly to the Friends of the Trenchtown Reading Center NGO in Vancouver, and I send the money down to an organization in Jamaica, Agency for Inner City Renewal, and they disperse the funds. We do have a nonprofit in Jamaica, Face Jamaica, Friends of Community Education, where most of our grant money from Jamaica has gone in the past. But we're in the middle of forming a new organization, so we're just having that on hold.
Okay.
So the PayPal goes directly. It's a registered Canadian nonprofit, been registered since 1996, so well established. And the center, the amazing thing is the center is so well respected. It's established. It's up and running. It's, I think because it's operational, people think, that it doesn't need help. And several times, like in January, these people in Miami totally understood the educational philosophy and were blown away by it. So they were going to take it over and keep me on as sort of program developer, liaise with the community. And then the money was from an American organization. They said, no, we're not funding anything in Trenchtown.
Well.
So, there's always those disappointments.
Right. Well, hopefully this message will get out to a broader community and they'll get it. I want you to put on your crystal gaze right now and look out 5 years. What would you want? What's your vision for the Trenchtown Community Center in 5 years' time? What do you see?
Okay, then can I say something before that? Before
sure,
I forget?
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that to the Jamaican diaspora community is that whenever there's a show, like there was a show called Lethal Force on Dateline, whenever there's a show highlighting the violence and things in Jamaica, I read the responses that come over the Internet. And the diaspora, I understand, that it upsets people to see always reporting about the violence and the poverty. But the Trenchtown Reading Center, the fact is that violence and the poverty exists. And a lot of people listen to reggae music who aren't Jamaican and think it's some kind of historical perspective. as Jamaicans know, people are still struggling, and it's maybe in some ways even harder than it was before. It's a reality. It's not history. And so the violence and the poverty, we can't forget it and move on. There's nowhere to move on to unless we make some positive changes. And the Reading Center is one of the most, and I'm not saying this because it was sort of my creation with the community and all kinds of other people who are inspired to join us, but everybody says it should be the model for places, because it deals with literacy, it deals with self-esteem, it deals with self-confidence. It's open to the whole community. It's like a cornerstone where all kinds of good things can happen. So looking ahead in my crystal ball, what I would like to see, what I think will be, is things like the Reading Center in every community. And many people have said that. Many people have come by and say, okay, this is what we need. Educators, businessmen, this is what we need. Can you help us do this? And I say yes, but they go uptown and, it all vanishes.
So it's like a franchise of
well, it would look different. It would look different in every community, and I think that, you see, this grew up organically because I was part of the community. I used to stay in Trenchtown. I used to live on Columbus Road when I was there, so I'd be there for a month at a time, and I used to be there all the time. So I didn't think, well, who's going to run it in the end? I didn't think like that. So down the road, I think that everybody wants to see something like the Trenchtown Reading Center in every community. And, of course, they would look different in different communities. I have been to other communities. I've been taken into other ghetto areas with people, and I've talked to leaders there, and I've said, this is what I've done. I see it in a different fashion. Like I was saying, I was part of the community, so it just evolved. We didn't really think. Carl Brown actually came back in 2005, and he was supposed to be the person on the ground, and he had to leave. But the sustainability is always an issue. So my concept now when I talk to people is to start small, to just start with the kids section, because we go all the way up to adults, and we have huge nature section and huge junior biographies and, a huge Afrocentric and regular collection. So is to start small and create a beautiful kids corner like we have, so that we create lifelong readers and can focus on literacy. And you can even do adult literacy as well, even if you build a smaller place that focuses on children. And so I think that's what I would see in the next 5 years. Realistically, those could be done in every community, and there would be a volunteer and maybe somebody who was paid to work maybe 3 hours a day.
Okay.
So they wouldn't have to have as comprehensive programs, but they could have after-school literacy and weekend literacy and the storybook activities and the language arts. So I have talked to a few other communities who are very interested.
Well, we just hope that this thing blossoms and grows and just create just a new gardens of literacy and reading all over Jamaica.
Great.
Yes, well, Roslyn, you just said a whole lot. Thank you for dedicating yourself in such a generous way. May your leadership and dedication continue to lead a rich harvest in enriching the lives and the hearts of Jamaica in places like Trenchtown. Thank you.
And to learn more about the Trenchtown Reading Center, visit trenchtownreadingcenter.com. To learn more about Jamaican Diaspora, visit JamaicanDiaspora.com. You can also find Jamaican Diaspora on iTunes, Jamaican Diaspora Radio, and Jamaican Diaspora TV. And Chris, his website is Your Internet Energizer. He is also available on Jamaicans.com. He's a blogger on Me Thinking Are You. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. We'll see you next time.
When you don't go to Geico.com, car insurance can be confusing. Like Swedish techno confusing.
bark, bark, meow, meow. Dance with me, purple cow, bark, bark, meow, meow. Ooh, you lovely cow.
Geico makes it easy. With 24/7 access, all you have to do is go to geico.com and you could save money on car insurance. It just makes sense. Unlike,
Dance with me, purple cow. I like your moves.